Hello guys, Wahoo here, back with another episode of the community podcast that we have about Trove. This time around, I'm joined by Bocc on this side over here, and in a little bit he will introduce himself. But I will say that we are very close to, or kind of close to, we're definitely in the month of June, so there will be a podcast right after as it goes live. Just letting you guys know. So in about 3 weeks in time, I will try to get somebody else and we can kind of talk all about, because I have not personally tried out Jude, because I kind of want it all to be new and fresh and stuff like that. I know Bocc has tried it out. What I've tried out on the PTS server is that I've tried out the Bomber Royale and see kind of what it was, and it was actually quite nice, and we will get into that later on. But first, I will say thank you so much, Bocc, for coming on to the podcast, and let's hear a little bit about who you are.
Yo, guys, what's going on? I'm Bocc. I'm a variety streamer, but I did get much of my start playing Trove, and I still play it to this day. I got about 2,000 hours on it. I know that's not as much as a lot of people, but I definitely think I've put my fair share into the game. Right now, I'm an endgame player. I'd say I'm a gunslinger. I play other games as well, like from League of Legends, Rocket League, PUBG, all these other things. So I dip in here and there. I like to interact with my community, stay as educational as possible, and I'm really happy to be invited on this podcast so I can discuss my point of view on the state of the game.
Yeah, cool. Also, to just say, his web camera is not as normally as dark and blurry as it is here. It's basically Skype, and that's because. Yeah, I don't have the know-how to capture it on Discord. I've tried many times, it just doesn't work. So just letting you guys know, that's not the actual quality of his webcam.
Just sabotaging me.
Yeah, just trying to make you look bad. All right, so as you said, you have been 2,000 hours on Trove and an in-game player. I think I'm about the same place on 2,000 hours. I think that's more or less the average of many people in the end game, actually. Of course, it's hard to say, but I think there's a lot of people that when you get to the end game, you kind of get on a stale and you kind of do the same thing over and over. And but how do you kind of play the game now? As you said, you're an in-game player.
Okay, so for the most part, I log on every single day. I fill up my star bar. I do all my tomes every week. I do my my shadow towers, so pretty much the same as everyone else. Right now, the only things I'm really going for right now are my rampage badges, and I have a couple more for the shadow tower for Hydra and Dreadnought that I need to complete. But besides that, those are the main things that I play for. So it can get pretty monotonous from time to time. I suppose I could be maxing other classes, but right now that doesn't really interest me. It's just mostly the mastery that I get from those last things.
Yeah, it's very much like the gameplay. Like you could max your Tomb Raiser, for example, but to one end, because you're not going to use it. So it's just going to be like, oh, my Tomb Raiser is 25,000. Well, okay, fine, great. You spend a lot of either money or you spend a lot of time on nothing, right?
Exactly.
But now you set yourself about about doing the shadow towers and doing everything the star bar and stuff like that. Do you think that there should be other? I was about the badges. How you feel about the badges? That's what I wanted to say. That's kind of.
Oh, the badges?
Yeah, like the long-term badges. Like you're talking about Rampage, we're talking about Hydra's, Dreadnought's badges and stuff like that.
I think, it's a game lengthener. I don't know to what quality it is, because it is something there's no real reward at the end of it except for 40 mastery points. It's not like you're grinding and then at the end you get some gear. It's just an artificial game lengthener in order to just add one more thing you need to have to stay at the top of the mastery leaderboards, essentially. And yeah. I get why Tryon does it, because so many people are at that point in the game where they're running out of stuff to do. So it's a step in the right direction, but I'd like to see a little something more intuitive instead of just do 300 times 6, dungeon of the same dungeon,
Yeah. and just the different difficulty. Will you think that it would be, because we've been talking about this on stream as well, what about titles? Like, for example, now you said yourself, like, you do 300 runs and you get a badge that you can tell, I have the badge, but you can't really show it off to people. You said gear, for example, or maybe what about titles? I know World of Warcraft has, like, for example, the insane title where it is insane to get, for example, or something you completed as a title.
I feel like definitely, like, if you could get something like it's a, like, I would be like Hydra Slayer or whatever, dude, and you did like every single difficulty of all, like, the max tier for that. But I'd also not want to overload it too much with a whole bunch of things. But like, I definitely showing some distinction, because it's a time sink, and even if you do multi farms, or even if you skip, which I know is a problem and people do it, but it still takes a long time to do it. So
yeah, 100%. But I also maybe could be only for only for Ultra Hydra. You would get the Hydra Slayer, for example, as a maybe not give it for every single 300 run or something like that, like all the each difficulty, but only for maybe the Ultra version or something like that, because. As many people are, like, customization is like huge in any game, and you want to stand out and you want to show off, and doesn't matter who you are, but you really want to do that. So, yeah, there's just about the. It was not something we actually talked about. We should talk about, but that's sometimes how the conversation sometimes goes in a direction. So what are your goals? You said something about those. Do you have any, like, goals at the moment you want to, like, do in Trove?
Yeah, actually. Okay, so right now I'm like 541 or 541 or 542 mastery. My goal is to hit 550 before Geode comes out, because if I'm not 550 by the time Geode comes out, everybody's gonna flame me, and I'm gonna have 0 Trove street cred. So that's my primary thing right now. And to do that, I need to finish these shadow towers. I need to find a way to make flux and buy these costumes, and just like it's essentially just farming for mastery at this point, and that's my goal.
Yeah. So what are you looking for? And is that the badges you're missing, or is it something major?
Well, actually, I just got my Ganda like a couple weeks ago, so oof. that was the big one. Like, I'm still missing a couple things, like the Dreadnought mount, and I think like the Hewn Hydraken head or the Hydra Snack or whatever one that is. But besides that, it's just mostly some big ticket items and a whole crap ton of costumes from the store that, like, you have to buy credit pouches to get. And with the price of credit pouches right now, that's going to take a little while.
Actually, this might be a question I should have asked before. Are you a free-to-play player, or you're a semi-pay kind of person?
Oh, Jesus. Okay, so I'm a firm believer in, if it's a free-to-play game and you have fun, there's nothing wrong with spending some money. I'm not the type of person who's going to spend tens of thousands of dollars, but if you spent a couple thousand hours of your life, games require, and companies require money to function and upkeep their game. Yeah. And, it's just like, I have no qualms spending some money. So yes, I have spent money on the game. Not that much, but enough,
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. Like, if you enjoy the game, support it a little bit. That's the amazing part about a free-to-play game, is that you can support it whenever you want to. It's not like you have to have a monthly subscription where you have to pay every time to play the game. So you can support it whenever you got a little bit of extra, or you can save up a little bit and save it for when they go on sale and stuff like that. I would say I'm a kind of a semi-paid player. It's the same as you probably, as like spend like 10 $10, 10 euros, whatever, here and there. And when they go on sale, you buy a little bit and stuff like that.
Exactly. I would call it like bargain. I'm a bargain shop player. Like, I'll save my money. I'll wait until, Black Friday when the packs go on sale, or when they have their summer sale, or when there's something like I really think is a good use of my money. I'm not just like, oh, there's a new update, let me just drop $600 on everything in the update.
Yeah. Because for me, and many people think that Trove is pay to win, but it is not really pay to win, because you don't really win anything by being top mastery. You are top mastery, yes, but it's nothing like, except you can say you're top mastery, basically. And there's a lot of people out there that's completely free to play. Take, for example, Killer T. He's over 530 mastery, for example, and he's completely free to play. So the people that say that, pay to win, it's more pay to fast most of the time. And as you said yourself, people do have to keep in mind that Trove is a free-to-play game, and they have people behind the game. So the more money we put into the game, the better game we get. So, because nothing is free in this world, and they still have to pay for servers, they still have to pay for people to employ them, and so on.
No, I 100% agree. I have this argument all the time with people who are like, oh, the Trove is so pay to win. I mean, like, you can put $100,000 in this game. You still need to grind for those gems. You still need to grind for that power rank and that shadow tower to clear your towers and all this other stuff. So yeah, paying will immensely speed up the process, but you cannot just get everything from paying. So
yeah, cool. We recently talked about the 3 major updates. They've talked about the start of summer update, and the end of summer update, and then the end of the year, basically end of fall. So again, to give people the timeline, is that we now know that the June 26th we're going to get Dude with the Bomber Royale as the little bit smaller things, a little bit of a revamp of the PvP. And then the end of the summer we are going to get like the introduction to U10, and then at the end of the year we're going to see U10 and what that's going to bring. I have personally myself played Bomber Royale on the PTS server. Have you touched that as well? I know you've tried Geode, but have you tried Bomber Royale as well?
I actually have not tried Geode. I've watched the Trove dev streams, I've read all the patch notes, and I've seen videos on it. I have not tried it myself yet.
Oh, okay.
Same thing with Bomber Royale. I was watching the dev stream earlier as well as last week, and I see what Bomber Royale is all about, and I've got like the general gist on the update. I just haven't actually played it myself.
Oh, okay. But it sounds like you're the same as I am, except I've tried Bomber Royale, but I haven't looked much at the Geode, and haven't touched any of the kind of the content around it. But to talk about Bomber Royale, I've tried it, and it's very it's different, and I don't know if it's gonna be better PvP than it is now. It is more of a not as using your class instead of, because as PvP are right now, Revenant just sometimes just wrecks you, and that's a lot of classes that does that.
Yeah, I want to be honest with you. Going into this future update, I was expecting, before I knew anything about it, I was expecting the Geode update itself to be excellent, and I was thinking Bomber Royale was just a cheap cash grab on the whole battle royale aspect that every company is trying to get on. But the more I learn about it, I'm feeling the other way around now. Like, I'm honestly more interested in the Bomber Royale mode because it looks fun, and it looks like something I could probably find enjoyment out of, as opposed to Geode, which I don't want to get too into this now because it's a later topic. But yeah, so.
Oh yeah, well, we can go for that as a Bomber Royale. I don't know if there's actually a lot to talk about it. We have put it as a topic that we're going to talk Bomber Royale, but to be honest, maybe there is not as much to talk about exactly on that, except that it's something that's a different. And my opinion is that I don't think they should have removed the old PvP system, but they should have just added Bomb Royale as a more options for people to do PvP.
Oh, they removed the old PvP system? I had no clue.
There's not when I was on the PTS server, I couldn't. They hadn't removed the old system where you leveled up, but I couldn't join it. I don't know how you would join it, the old PvP. They was only able to join Bomb Royale, but I've just heard that they were going to remove it, and Bomb Royale would be the only thing that you could do.
Because, I mean, I know a lot of people who do play the old PvP and who like it, but what I like about Bomb Royale, just for like my finishing thoughts on Bomb Royale, is I like how they took out like the class-based aspect of it. It's mostly like the classes are there for that certain aesthetic that character brings with like your different transmogs and stuff. So it's all like everything's every class is set at the same level. So it's I really like that, because you're right. Certain classes in traditional Trove PvP just completely destroyed everyone. Yeah, and that was annoying. So
yeah, it's definitely a step in the right direction where it's skill and not class. So let's jump from Bomb Royale and actually go into Jude, which might be a lot more to talk about in a podcast kind of way. We are going to get introduced now. Two mastery systems. We're going to keep the old, I'm going to call it the old mastery system, the one we are used to, and then they're going to introduce a Dude specific leaderboard as well. And as far as I know, we go only to level 100 now. Is that correct?
Hey, all I know is about the differentiating mastery systems. I don't know too much about specific numbers here, but that's the one thing I am excited for this update. And also, someone on the dev stream earlier asked, are we going to be punished as players for not playing the Geode update? Will that affect our normal mastery system? And that is something like I'd be interested to hear more about, because like this update is not really something that really interests me, but if I'm forced to play it to stay relevant as a player, then I will, but that's going to really dampen my spirits as a Trove player. So
they have said that some stuff do still give mastery to both leaderboards, and as far as I could see on the, because something might have changed, that's why I kind of asked, so you might have known, is that it was to a level 100 you can get Jude to, and probably in the future that will be increased to more. And I think it's a really good idea to kind of level the playing field for everybody on that leaderboard, because actually we're getting also new colors of names. We still have the green one for devs. We're getting a blue one for Geode, I think it is, and then there's I can't exactly remember the colors, but there is colors for all of basically everything. Well, not everything, but there's more colors for the names now.
Just Geode specific, or will these go over into the other game as well?
They will be in the game. Let me see if I can't find the exact live. Hold on, I'll look here. Yeah. New mastery names colors. As orange is overall highest mastery for both Trove and Geode leaderboards. And then you will have blue for highest mastery in Geode leaderboards, and then yellow for highest mastery in Trove leaderboards.
Okay.
So, and then we'll of course have the green for devs still, and red for people that uses Heartophone on you.
Any news on a change in interaction with Heartophones temporarily overriding yellow, blue, or orange name tags, or is that still going to be something where if you Heartophone somebody, it's just completely worthless?
I know that there's still priority in this, and that is something us also have been talking about on the new show. Is that I've said there should be some kind of option to use the color that you want to use. Of course, there's also the purple one, still also in the game for Thought the Moon speedrunning. Of course, that's also in the game. But again, they all have priority, and I think it should be something that you should be able to just, if you have this also as a title, where you can just change what kind of color, what colors do I have access to, and which ones can I use, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that idea. That sounds good.
Yeah, so you don't basically something takes priority for something like that. All right. So next thing we're going to talk about is that they've said a little bit about U10. We're not going to go too much into U10, but we are going to talk about what they've said so far about what U10 is going to be. Of course, we're going to know much more about that when we get later on. But they have said that U10 is going to take place on the surface of Geode. And since I haven't really seen a lot of Geode, how it is, I know there's like a Sanctuary and stuff like that. It's kind of like a planet, right? And so I guess it will be as we maybe it can be the scenario be that where you open some kind of gate because of what we've done in Geode by mining and stuff like that, and that is going to set on the path to U10 and unlock monsters through that. How do you feel about that scenario?
I think that's a cool setup for it, because I mean I know the whole lore behind Geode is like the Geodians are like some sort of peaceful race that were forced underground or something to escape the shadow or whatnot. So I assume U10 is going to be you like bringing the fight to them. That's a cool like little lore setup. Honestly, the only thing I care about, to be honest, I'm not much of a lore guy. I care more about the numbers here. So like, how easy is this going to be? Like, what's the threshold going to be for power rank? How will current damage numbers transfer into this new difficulty? Like, and just essentially the playability of it as well. Is it going to be fun, or is it just going to be the same dungeons copy and pasted into a higher Uber? So yeah, that's what I'm interested in.
Rough numbers on if we're talking numbers U10, for example, if we are just going to copy paste what we have right now and introduce like green gems, as they've said, we will see more colors. They've actually used the number or the word colors with like multiple, but if we're going to assume they're only going to introduce like green ones, for example, and just take the numbers we have right now, we will hit like around 35,000 power rank. And how is that going to transition into the power spike that is of Shadow Towers as they are now, for example?
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, right now, the Shadow Towers is something. If you let me get going on this topic, I'll just keep going.
Go.
So I have a big problem currently with even the state of Shadow Towers right now. I think at even like 20,000 PR, you can solo like the first two Shadow Towers relatively easily on most DPS classes. So, and now as somebody who's like 25k plus on a gunslinger, I can kill Spike Walker and like Weeping Prophet in under 7 seconds. So if I'm 35,000 PR, this is the same ultra mode that I can't even solo Dark Nick Dreadnought like besides like on like an Ice Sage or a Pirate Captain or something like that. Like I just think there's too much of a difference between these levels and ultra mode, where they either need to find a way to come up with a harder difficulty if they're going to raise the cap of the power rank and add these new gems, or they need to rework the current Shadow Tower system, or do some sort of overhaul on at least even like the first 2 or 3 Shadow Tower bosses in order to bring it more into line with an end game player's experience, which is something I'd be interested in seeing. But
yeah, 100%. I don't. You probably maybe do this as well. Carry people through Shadow Towers, and I don't carry people through Dreadnought anymore. Dawn and Moon is fine, but I don't carry people on Dreadnought because it's just too demanding on people's. You need only 10k power rank to join it, but take 8 people with 10k, you cannot do it at all. I guess if you had, the skill and the luck, and I doubt it, but that is what is required. And I've said this before, and I'm probably going to say it again. Areas doesn't match what is required, and I don't think that is obvious to people. Like, that's not obvious to a person. You think this is what required, this must be what I can do it, right?
And like, I totally agree. Now I base my entire stream essentially for Trove off of providing a Shadow Tower carry. I don't do a whole lot of giveaways. I don't do a whole lot of other things. Like, I provide like carries, or I try to like help newer players with like information. So essentially, what having somebody like, you're right, like you said, 10,000 PR to get into Dreadnought and to Daughter of the Moon. I see why they're doing it, at least for Daughter of the Moon. It's because it provides like an extra threshold for players to acquire more Bound Brilliance and more Lunar Souls. But those players are essentially forced to either find somebody to carry them for free, or they have to shell out Flux and pay for carries. I mean, I don't know if you've seen that in like ST chat or global chat, but people charge like 50,000 Flux per person just to carry them through like Dreadnought or Daughter of the Moon, and that's like ridiculous. So
yeah, people have offered me, as I'm doing free carries, people have offered me to do money or Flux to carry them, and it seems a little silly when we're doing it for free, right? And the power spike and the obvious. I tried to set up like a requirement myself of 15,000, but it's still just not enough. This power spike is not there, and Shadow Towers, as it is now and probably will be later on, has to have a rework again. And what is it? When was Eclipse out? 7 months, 8 months ago, or something like that, where we had Eclipse update, where basically we had introduced Hydroxion or Hydra, and we had also Dreadnought, where everything should have been like. That was the Shadow Tower update that we were waiting for, and it just didn't do what it had to do. And
I'll say it's a step in the right direction, because I really like the mechanics that are involved. I like how, like, if you're not like a full group of like 25k gunslingers, you do have to have some mechanics. Like when you do Hydra, like you have to stay off the ground. The tank can't sit too close to the boss when it's pulling the adds, otherwise you'll get sucked in and die. Like it's nowhere near as complex as like raiding in World of Warcraft. But I like something a little more complex than just standing there and shooting it really hard and really fast, you know. And speaking of tactics, I don't. How familiar are you with the Ice Age tactic for Darknik Dreadnought?
I don't know it in specific, but I've tried it where you stand and maybe you can explain it. I think that's better for.
Yeah. I mean, essentially, all you can have like a 10k Ice Age. All you have to have is like max energy regen. Obviously, you don't want HP, so you just max energy regen. You stand in one spot, everybody stands behind you, and the Ice Age just has his shield up and keeps right-clicking. And the Darknik Dreadnought will walk up, just shooting its laser, then jump back. Walk up, jump back. It won't trigger any other abilities. You'll get no nuke, no fire, no Gatling gun, no push, nothing. And essentially, you can do this as long as your Ice Age doesn't mess up. You can do this with any level of group, like all 10Ks. It'll take like a couple thousand seconds, but that's a surefire way to do some carries. And that's like the method I've been seeing a lot of people use, and I've been trying to use it myself as well, and it seems to work.
I might have to try that as well. The only thing is that when you have people to respond to your chat and hear what you're saying, that you have to stand in a line and stuff like that, then sometimes it can be tricky. But if that's a method, if you have to kind of in some way cheese it like that, is the fight really what it's supposed to be?
I mean, I'm more impressed of the fact that, like you said, though, like this Eclipse update's been out for like 7-8 months now. This method was only really starting to come out like a month or two ago, maybe a little more. So it took about half a year of different people experimenting for them to finally find this method and be like, all right, this is the most efficient way to do it. And whether it's cheesing or not, it's still a technique that not everyone can do, because let's face it, Ice Age is not a class that everyone plays. So it's forcing more people to build a new and underused class, which I guess brings more diversity to the game, which is something that's really needed when everybody's playing like Gunslinger and whatever, Shao, Neon Ninja. So I think that's really cool. Maybe adding something to switch it up a little bit, but I really like having more tactics available for people to use.
Yeah, 100%. So we kind of took the discussion or the talk in the direction of like Shadow Towers. We were actually on gems, but they specifically set themselves colors. And what does, if you were not, because many people have speculated for a very long time that we're going to see green gems. So what do you think they mean by colors? Are we going to see like a lot more colors? Or are we going to, because they set colors with an S multiple, right? It could be 2 new colors, or so you might be over dramatic in saying there's like 10 colors, but it might only be 2 new colors.
If they're adding multiple colors, are they just going to have lesser gems with these colors? Because as of right now, if you're just going to add like 1 extra set, so like you have your blue gems, your yellow gems, and your red gems. If you had a whole nother set of green gems, I don't know exactly how much PR that adds, but it's going to be a decent chunk. Like, are they going to have empowered gems? All of this is stuff I don't know for sure. I'm really looking forward to them adding a new type of gem to have, not like a new difficulty of gem to obtain, I guess I would say, because I've heard from multiple other players at the end game, like they're like, man, I put so much time, so much flux, so much resources, so much bound brilliance into augmenting and upgrading these gems. If they just come out with a new difficulty above this, like I'm gonna be pretty pissed. So as long as like they find a way to integrate it, so there's stuff for people to grind, but it doesn't completely undermine everything they've done so far. Yeah. That would be optimal in my opinion.
They have said that because people have been asking about it on the live stream, about the if their gems is still going to be relevant, and they are going to be, so they've said. So they are, what you've done before is not going to undermine or the new stuff you're basically going to get. But with new gyms and stuff like that, as this thing is right now, are we going to see? You think we're going to see like more? Because when you hit certain levels, like you hit level 26, you get unlock the last yellow lesser gem, and when you hit 30, you unlock the red one, and there's kind of like a gap on 4 levels like that. Do you think we're going to see more like every level from like 10 to 30 that we're now going to see you can put in a gem? Or you think we're going to see a level increase to 40 maybe?
I'd really like to see a level increase because, I mean, I don't know about you, but once again, a lot of people I know have just so many experience pots laying around. Like they saved up and saved up and saved up, and they used like 4 of them to level their Vanguard. So it'd be cool to have like a level increase where, like, nothing too astronomical, but like I said again, when you reach a certain point in the game, there's only so much for you to do, and having to like level a class to put more gems in or to do something is just adding more content into the game. That's not. It's meaningful content too. It's not do 300 shadow of this same shadow tower. It's do whatever you want, and you'll get something rewarding out of it that'll bring like an actual increase in power to your character. So I would like to see a level increase, like nothing too crazy, but maybe like 30 to 40 or something,
Yeah. Well, I agree. I think a level increase would be really great because
as you also have, and a lot of in-game players have, max level ever no, the only thing we really want experience for is for the weekly contest of the leaderboard or leaderboard reward chest. Is that what they're called? I think that's what they're called.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you're basically just grinding those 2.5 million experience just to get those boxes, just to have more things to open, I guess.
And that's really easy to obtain. Like, you do not have to do much to get the max reward for that. So
depending on where you are in the game, of course, but as an in-game player, if you're only grinding for that, that doesn't really take that long at all. So by maybe using increasing the level cap, I also hope that with they open or introducing more colors, I also hope that they're going to be more transitioned in better ways, so you don't have those 4 levels where you don't basically do anything from 26 to 30, basically.
Yeah.
Yes.
That'd be nice to optimize it better. That's for sure.
But I think we definitely, as a community, definitely also have to keep Tryon in check, so we don't get I'm gonna say Diablo, endless power Paragon levels. So it's just numbers without really meaning, because it's just unfathomable damage or power rank or something like that.
I agree, and that's just that's what I call the Bethesda effect, or like the Skyrim effect, or the Fallout thing. It's like just endless quests that mean nothing. They're just auto-generated. They're just there to keep you playing. They don't do anything for you, but they're the game devs just throwing that out there just to give people something to do. And I agree. I think it's important that we let Tryon know, exactly, hey, we want more content, but give us content that means something instead of just nothing.
Yeah, exactly. We need meaning with what they're doing, and then just not some way just increasing the power rank to something insane. So Geared is there's not well, we have actually discussed it quite a lot, but something that's also coming with the Geo update, actually we didn't say that, the Revenant update as well. And what is your take on all these quote unquote reworks that Tryon are doing with the older classes?
So it's no secret, in any game, whether it's League of Legends or Trove, when you first start a game, all your classes tend to be a little more simplistic and not have a lot of nuance to them. So and as the game goes on, as more mechanics are introduced, these old classes get phased out, and they're not nearly as good. If you look at the old Revenant and then compare it to somebody like Vanguardian, it's night and day. How far they've come in their development. So I really like seeing them rework stuff like the Revenant. I was watching Chrono's stream the other day when she was testing it on the PTS, and she said she could solo Darknik Dreadnought on the new Revenant.
Yeah.
So it looks now. Just going from the patch notes, because I was reading those earlier and actually have those up right now. Is it going to be a full HP tank still? Because it looks like it scales better with physical damage as opposed to HP.
As far as I know, is that it's going to be full physical, in the sense that before your number 1 ability scaled off your health, but it's going to be scaling off your physical damage now.
Yeah, that being said, it definitely looks like a really cool class. If you can solo stuff like Dreadnought on it, that's awesome. This is another opportunity to add more viable classes for people in the game. Whether it's going to be used in speedrunning or not, it looks like that's a negative Ghost Rider on that one. But seeing another class being made viable is definitely something that I'm excited to see.
Yeah, 100%. And I was very skeptical about the the reworks, and I have for so long not acknowledged them as like reworks, basically just buffs, and I feel like that is 100% what they still are. I still don't feel like these are reworks, but just buffs to them, and it has. Thank God, actually worked for the Draco. The Draco there was many people that like kind of mained the Draco, but kind of fell off in the end, or not in the end, but sometimes they didn't fully commit to it, but they have done that so now because of these buffs to it. So it definitely has done something for the Draco, but take the Fey Trickster, for example, has had no effect on it, for example.
Yeah, and I mean, the Fey Trickster is like it's a weird class to balance just because like its kit, it does so much single target damage that if they change it in any meaningful way, like a buff its ability to take down mobs, it'll quickly just become the best class in the game by far and just crowd out every other class. So without completely, I think, reworking the class's core mechanics, it's a really hard class to balance. But also that being said, I mean, I agree they're not full on reworks, but more of just like a mini rework or just a buff towards like the champion. Yikes! I've been playing too much League of Legends to the class's abilities. Like it's made like for the longest time in speedrunning, it was Gunslinger and Candy Barb, and you would have like maybe one pirate captain or something. And now, like, you'll see, like, Fey Tricksters, you'll see the Dracolite, you'll see Vanguard, you'll see the PCs, you'll see Candy Barbs, you'll see all these other classes that are being made more viable through indirect nerfs or indirect buffs or all these other new mechanics added into the game, which I think is, like, once again, really awesome because it's boring to just be like, all right, 7 gunslingers and 1 candy barb. All right, let's see a little diversity here. Oh, occasional Dino Tamer 2. Is this the Lord Mix shout out, Chrono? Hey, calling out my boy Mix.
Yeah, 100%. I see that a lot of people, speed running and also sorts of things like that could cater towards like more TPS, and I think as we see the Revenant going into the rework, and we're gonna see like we hear that people can solo it, the Dreadnought and stuff like that, and be invincible just through DPS, is of course a red flag, but I think it caters towards the increase just having more numbers, no more DPS, caters towards to a specific niche of the game, which is speedrunning, for example. Mm-hmm. And me not as a speedrunner, but as a casual dungeon runner or farmer, whatever, casual player, I still just use my Shadowhunter because of its just mechanics. And I would never use like the Fey Trickster, or I might use the Draco now, but I would just keep to the Shadowhunter for just casual farming. And I would love to see that these reworks also cater to more than just speedrunners or some other kind of niche.
For Shadow Towers, essentially, is what the Revenant's rework is fixing, is his usefulness in Shadow Towers. So yeah, I would like to see. I mean, it's obvious, or there's a clear front runner when it comes to farming. Neon Ninja is, I think, far and away like the best farming class in the game, but there are other classes that are viable, like Shadowhunter. You can go that movement speed build, and that works pretty well. You can farm on Fey Trickster not relatively easily, but in certain biomes, you can definitely farm on Fey Trickster, as well as Dracolite if it's in like the Fire World or something, or Lunar Lancer, and even Vanguardian. You can get like some decent dungeons per hours going, which that's what I liked with the new class. It was good in both Shadow Towers and decent in farming. Like, it wasn't the best in either, but it definitely was. It brought something to both aspects of the game, which I think is important.
100%. I think that's the direction that not. I wanted to say all classes, but then every class should just be the same class, right? But I kind of like the idea that as well the Vanguardian catered to both of them, but not doing kind of either thing the best. And I think that's a good direction of giving us a class like that. Actually, talking about a class or a new class, where they're saying there's going to be no new class during this year. We're not going to see another class, but they have hinted at that the new class we are actually going to see does have a new weapon type. So not
Another one?
Yeah, a new one. They have said so. There was one question I think a couple of weeks back in the live stream that somebody asked if it was going to be a fist type kind of thing, but they said that they couldn't reveal the type yet. So they have said there's going to be a new weapon type class, but so they are working on a class, but we don't know. Maybe they gone back on the giving us a new class this year. Maybe there's coming one with U10. Maybe.
I mean, I really hope so, because how many new classes have come out in the? I mean, there's obviously Vanguard. What was the one before that? Was it Dino Tamer?
Dino Tamer, about a year and a half ago, about approximately before that.
And was there another new class, or was those the only two classes that have been released?
Those are the two only classes while I've been playing for about. When I came back to the game again, it was about. That's about 2 years ago. So yeah,
I mean,
that's two classes in basically 2 years or a year and 9 months.
because I mean, I understand like when you're developing a class for a game, like it's not as easy as a lot of people think. Like you have to go through and develop the concept, and you have to see what kind of play style it will have, and see what kind of player fulfillment it'll bring. Like, will it bring something special, or is it just going to be like another edgy ninja type class or something? Like what niche will it fill in the game? But it'd be nice to see a little more character diversity. Maybe I'm like, once again, I'm spoiled because I play League of Legends so much as well, where they have like 7 or 8 new characters every year. So in comparison, having 2 characters released over your entire lifetime of your game, being only like 3 or 4 years or whatever, seems a little lackluster in my opinion. So
I definitely think that taking from other games, now you mentioned yourself, League of Legends, for example, I think that Trove needs to steal ideas more that works in other games. I know it works in other games, like a group system that many other games have. Like you said yourself, more champions that, or champion. Now I'm saying champions. I mean heroes, right? I think there's a lot of things out there they can just steal that could make the game more friendly towards game group play and introducing different classes and stuff like that. My direction is that I think they should work more on the classes that are here. They're trying to do that with the rework, but I'm also interested in a revamp of the subclasses. And how do you feel about the subclasses? Like, I know it's way back and nobody's like, oh, we got subclasses, and everybody was hyped, and then people got them and they were like, all right, another stat stick.
How do you feel about swearing?
Swearing?
Can I like mild
you can use a swear word. I won't get demonetized anyway.
I think the new subclass system is absolute dog shit. None of it makes any sense. Why does the class that you are playing not benefit from its own subclass while you're using it? Why do you only benefit from another subclass? Also, it's just so arbitrary too. Like, why does what is it? The Boomeranger have a Fey ally that gives you bonus damage or something, or like,
or
none
heals
of it makes
you.
any sense? Yeah.
It's so the subclass system is so lackluster that it's baffling, because whenever people ask me about the subclasses, which subclass could I use? I just say Lunar Lancer. Use the Lunar Lancer. You can't go wrong. Oh, it might not be like what you have to 100%, but just use the Lunar Lancer. Like, and you have to take the Lunar Lancer, for example. When you have the Lunar Lancer itself on 20k power rank, it has like a 23% proc chance on the as you use it. Then if you want like 24%, you have to go 25,000 power rank on a class that you might not even use just to get 1 extra percent. That's 5,000 power rank that you have to augment and whatnot just to get 1 extra percent of this proc, which is why would you spend that much on a class? Well, the Loon Lance is a good class stuff for sure, and people use it for farming, but just to get 1 more percent, it seems like too much.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even necessary too, because you're right. Like the proc chance goes up by such a negligible amount. I was like, when I first started speedrunning, my Lunar Lancer was like 5,000 PR, 10,000 PR or something, and just because it wasn't necessary, regardless, sometime in the duration of your like 20-second speedrun, it's going to proc. Like you don't need to level the class, so it's kind of just like, it's the best ability for raw damage output on like 90% of the classes, and leveling that class doesn't provide you any noticeable benefit. So it's kind of just like, all right, then what's the point of having any other subclass at all? I mean, like there is some like the Knight subclass is relatively useful. Actually, it's really useful for certain people, but like besides that, there's just so many dead subclasses that it's just not worth. Like, I'd really like to see them try to balance it more, and if not even just for DPS, like give like a couple that give better DPS and then a couple that are used for farming, and instead of just like one being so much clearly better than all the others, you know.
Yeah, 100%. There is that handful, or even less than like 3 to 4 subclasses that are actually useful, as you said yourself. What I was hoping to do with these subclasses when I heard it is that, and I'm going to quote another game again, I feel like it's the quote the game kind of podcast. Path of Exile has also introduced, they call it ascendancies, but it's also subclasses, where you start out as one class. There is basically, there is 6 classes in the game, and then they all have 3 subclasses after that. So, and that dramatically changes its gameplay style of all these other classes. And that's what I hope that these subclasses, when they're introduced, would do. Not only be a stat stick, as so many of them are, but actually change abilities. For example, I had an example of like the if you took the if you were a Shadow Hunter and you took the Near Ninja's subclass, it would change your number 1 ability to be like, because the number 1 ability of this Near Ninja is that you have this dash, right? So you would combine these two with your like number 1 ability. So then you would, instead of just placing the like throwing that stun bomb, whatever, it would be also a move ability. So it would do the dash, and it would place like a stun bomb after where you were, and then you would move you, for example. That could be an example of how the subclass would change gameplay style in many ways. It's just a small example. I don't know if it would work on any classes or stuff like that, but then you could mix and match how you feel like your gameplay style needs to be, for example.
I didn't think of that, but at first thought, that sounds like a really, really interesting way to just completely vary up people's gameplay styles. But I think that would require like something on the level of the Geode patch from Trion's effort in order to do, because like you have to think of every subclass's interaction with every other class in the game, and then you have to find a way to make it like interesting or to do something else, and to make sure like no one thing breaks the entire game. Like,
yeah, 100%. So suddenly it doesn't become where if you match like the gunslinger with the Shadow Hunter, for example, or the Near Ninja, that it just becomes like unrealistic damage output, for example. Like suddenly that the maybe the gunslinger suddenly has like 3 shots at shooting at the same time with his ultimate on. Something ridiculous like that. Of course, shouldn't be like that. Maybe ultimates would not be included in that. Maybe it's only like 1 and 2nd abilities, like the smaller ones that would probably could work with some of them. And it, of course, it has to be that you can mix and match all classes, but not being like game breaking, but in small variations or something that would help these more less played classes, both in Shadow Towers, but also like just randomly, casually dungeon farming. So, but I gotta say that they have talked about they wanted to look at the subclasses again. We don't know when that's gonna happen. I think they have enough on the table right now, so I'm afraid that we might not see it before after U10. I don't think they're gonna squeeze it in before that, because people really don't care about the subclasses. It's not like something they talk about. People are interested in at the moment. So we've talked about a lot of things, actually. We actually had a lot of things to talk about. No new sub-biome. I was hinting at in some of the previous podcasts. We talked about sub-biomes. Sorry. So we're not going to see a new sub-biome. We're not going to really discuss sub-biomes until we see them introduce another sub-biome. I think they will, because there was a great success. I feel like there was a great success they had with the one they introduced for the Neon Ninja. Neon City biome.
Okay.
Yeah. What are you feeling about another sub-biome? Not to discuss what it could be, but
I mean, like, once again, anything to switch up the game would be really great. I thought Luminopolis was pretty cool. It definitely, like, you can obviously tell it's Neon City, but it has its own distinct dungeons and its own distinct vibe to it, which I thought was really interesting, as well as like the whole outpost aspect. And if they could do something like that, or even add like a completely different biome, like God, what the heck was it called? You know what I'm talking about, right? The one that they added for the Adventures update?
Yeah, Forbidden Spires?
Forbidden Spires. Yeah, just something like that's just really cool. Adds, like, that's more original content, and that's what I like to see in Trove. Like, something that expands on the base game, that is something more for me to do in the game that is fun and interesting. So I would like to see that.
Yeah, I've said multiple times that I feel like the sub biome of Neon City biome that we got is something they could just copy paste to some of the other. I don't know if all of them, but at least some of the older biomes. Just the whole concept of outpost and of course it should be different dragons or different things you could like farm and stuff like that. Of course, it shouldn't just be completely copy paste, but the whole concept of that. And something I've also been saying is that a lot of games have reputation, for example, on different they've set themselves put in the they called Rester. What is they called, the faction or people that are around the Lumini? They're called Restore, isn't they?
Resistors.
Yeah, resistors, exactly. So they kind of introduced also now they have Geode, which is also a people or a faction, whatever you're going to call it. What do you feel about like farming reputation with some of them, and not in the same way like Venturine is, but some kind of, if you get, let's say you get, I'm going to use the terms also from World of Warcraft, where you were honored and then you were revered and then you got exalted, and then when you got exalted you were able to buy, like, for example, a mount or something like that. What do you feel about like farming reputation with these by doing these quests that are specific to Resistor, for example?
I like that idea, actually. It kind of reminds me of the whole Fallout New Vegas type thing, where like there's different factions and like you can do stuff and build your reputation with these factions, and it'll unlock. Like I don't play World of Warcraft, so I'm just drawing my own comparison.
Yeah,
here.
If it's the same thing.
Yeah, it's very similar. I really like that, and that would, depending on like what kind of quests or what kind of activities you would do, I think that would be actually a healthier way to add more content, as opposed to what they try to do with the Forbidden Spires, where it was kill mobs in Forbidden Spires and collect 100 feathers. That's your new mount for the new biome, because that's a bit tedious. Instead, I would like, it might be a similar thing, and it would work like the Adventurine quest, but at least it wouldn't be so like open-ended, like oh man, dude, is my RNG gonna suck today? Am I gonna farm for 3 hours and get 2 feathers? Or because I've seen some people who have done that, like
Yeah.
so having like a way to like do certain quests, get like a finite or like an exact amount of reputation you just build towards an actual reward would be really cool.
Yeah, grinding it out in a less random way, by getting to this, and then again there could be special big the mount, like the Phoenix mount, could be like if you get exalted with these guys, and then people could see, oh well, if I want to get this, I need, this guy has actually gone all the way to exalted, or the required reputation with this faction, and also introduce some lore stuff in through that you're actually helping towards saving these people, and you're actually are a hero to this.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I think we're about to. Do you have anything else you actually want to talk about? We still got time, but do you have anything?
I was gonna say, how much time do you got? Because I was going to. I honestly, I kind of wanted to discuss just a little bit, because we kind of just touched on like the formalities of the whole Geode update, but we didn't really get too in depth on the actual content that it brings. So if you have like another 10-15 minutes or so.
Definitely, 100%. We go around an hour, but it's definitely, if there's something you want to discuss, it's absolutely necessary that we talk about it.
All right.
So,
well, first of all, how do you feel personally about the content that's being brought with the new Geode update? Because I have my own opinion, but I want to hear yours.
I could say that my opinion is kind of lackluster in the sense that I haven't tried it out myself. But I do feel like it's a good way to kind of draw Trove in a different direction, with having not a fighting patch, but more of a farming patch. And then bringing it later on to have more fighting aspect when we get into U10, as we talked about before. Our shenanigans on Geode here might invoke the shadow powers, and they actually want to defeat us now, and because of us fiddling around in the caves and stuff like that. I kind of like that aspect of we actually just the good guys that are actually just helping out some people, and that is just not fine with the shadow powers. And I kind of like that aspect of the lore thing, even though I'm not the big lore guy either. So
Okay, so essentially you're saying is you're not too thrilled about the update, but you can see yourself being excited if it leads into some better stuff in the future, I guess, or like if it provides like the background towards like this new U10 update.
I'm excited that they actually specifically said that it's not about fighting, but it's actually about farming. I like that aspect, that they are saying we're kind of going a different direction. Is this instead of this is power numbers, and also in kind of liking the aspect that everybody starts equal, and understand on the leaderboard, like giving everybody a free start and stuff, or new same start basically.
All right. Okay, so I have a completely conflicting opinion with yours, it sounds like, which is fine. I mean,
yeah.
Okay, so here's my issue.
Mm-hmm.
The last update, the Heroes update, was, in my opinion, not enough for what everyone else was expecting. I mean, it brought Luminopolis, which was great. It brought a new class that was great. But everything else was locked behind such a large grind gate. Like, I know people who still play every day today who have still not unlocked the Vanguard yet because it's so expensive to unlock. Now, that being said, it seemed more of like a paywall update than anything. Okay, so, but it still brought new content to the table. Whether or not it was a lot of content, that's fine. This Geode update, once again, going back months, I was told, or from what I've heard was, hey, U10's coming. It's going to be like this early spring or the summer. It's going to provide like a whole new, it's going to be like a whole new, like a new experience for the game. Cool. Now I'm hearing it's being pushed towards the end of the year and stuff in the fall. And I'm like, all right, how is this Kingdom Hearts 3? Like, how long am I going to have to wait for this, And then they announced Geode, and I see this, and I'm like, okay, this is not Trove. Or this is not the Trove game experience that I've played this entire time. Trove is essentially a grind fest. That's fine. The grinding was, at its core component, to reach the end game is to grind gems to increase the power of your character, to be more efficient at grinding to get more gems to increase the power of your character. So they essentially made an entire update about something that is completely unrelated to Trove's core gameplay experience. Whether or not like you personally or someone personally enjoys farming things that don't affect your character, like that's like a non-issue. That's like your personal fantasy, and that's fine because everyone finds enjoyment in different ways out of the game. But this is essentially an update I feel like I didn't personally ask for, not like my opinion matters, and a lot of other people didn't ask for. It kind of feels like a waste of time. Like Lasermancy is something like, when I see Lasermancy, I start slipping into a coma because it looks so incredibly boring. And they created an entire new biome with an entire massive update based solely on non-combat Lasermancy activities where you become like the animal's best friend, or like for these little critters in the dungeons. And I'm like, all right, that's cool, but that's not Trove. Like this is a different game here. So as long, like, I like how they make it a separate mastery system. If they included this new update with Trove's current mastery system, I would be like, all right, guys, what the heck are you doing? I understand what they're trying to do because the majority of Trove's player base is not endgame players who are running out of stuff to do, who need, like, they're trying to appeal to a wider audience. But exactly what audience are they appealing to here? Are these going to be, because these updates are so different, are people who like the base game Trove going to really like this new update and go play it? Or people who like Geode a lot going to be like, man, I really like Geode, let's go play Trove? They're so different. I don't know if there's going to be any crossover between people who like these two things, or a lot of crossover, which is going to actually like lengthen the lifespan of the game. So I'm a little disappointed personally, and that's like my take on it. And I wanted to get that out there.
Yeah, I totally get that. So where do you feel like Geode fits in then? Because if we say that Geode must come to Trove, let's say that, do you think people would be less disappointed if it came after U10? Like they pushed up like the time frame. We're talking time frame that we talked about that earlier. We talked about the lore kind of patch coming to end of summer and then end of the year U10. Would you be more? Do you think people would be less disappointed if right now we were getting that lore patch and then after summer we're getting U10 and then Geode would be like the end of the year kind of deal? Or do you think people would be disappointed that they actually got U10 and now they're getting a new update where they actually can't like test their skills? Or how do you feel like Geode fits in there?
I think the way that Tran set up the schedule with like the lore and everything else, there isn't another way to do things now that would make sense, because they're setting it up like you said, with Geode being the base, and then they're building U10 like on top of, like literally on top of Geode essentially. So I think that works fine from a lore perspective. It's just at this point nothing can be changed. I just have to roll with the punches and wait out for the experience that I'm actually going to find enjoyment out of.
Yeah, it is a kind of like a pause in the until we get like, give themselves more time, and without knowing exactly how they use the resources, you could just looking at it could say that, well, guys could be working on U10 instead of giving us Geode, for example. Or giving us U10 earlier, right? But we don't know if they're actually already working on it as a separate team, and Geode is also a separate team, where they just giving us some content until they can actually completely go through with with U10, for example.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, like I totally agree, and maybe I'm coming coming across a little too like vindictive here, but I'm still gonna play Geode. Who knows? I might actually find like enjoyment out of it. I might like it. Who knows? I haven't put that much of my my time into it yet, so I so far, like I said, what I like is that it's completely separate mastery system. Once again, like I'm not going to go off on a huge tangent, but for every other update that I've been aware of, this is what a lot of people I know do. They go on PTS, they min-max the shit out of everything. They found out, okay, I need to save up 70,000 robotic salvage for this update. I need to get this much flex, this much of this much of that. So essentially when the update comes out, they have the entire thing completed already.
Yeah.
And then they go and complain about not having content. I'm like, well, guys, if you actually played the update instead of doing the update before it even comes out, you might actually have something to do. So in that aspect, I think Geode is like a good thing because it provides content you can't like. It's such a new experience that you can't grind for it ahead of time, like, really. So like that's awesome. I applaud Tryon for that. That being said, they could still do stuff like that for U10. But I mean, like regardless, I know people like me are stocking up on empowered gem boxes just in case you can get like the new gems out of those boxes. But, you know, it's
it's kind of like where there used to be. Now I'm gonna quote World of Warcraft again because back in the day you had a world first. You know, you killed different bosses with the world first and stuff like that. Then they introduced PT or test servers basically, and that's where people used their time to go, like they used all their time on the test server and killed these bosses as world first, and then when the bosses came to live, people really didn't care about it because they already know how to do it. You know, there was no new stuff. It was just business as usual. So world first was actually on the test server instead. So the whole world first kind of deal kind of went out the window with World of Warcraft and is not a thing anymore. And my reference is what you're saying. Basically, people are making these spreadsheets on what they have to grind for before they know what they have to get. And I guess that's something, but it also kind of kills the new aspect of what it is. And maybe what I think they might have to do is that they not open up the test server for everyone, or maybe leave out some content for some people that are basically just there to test some stuff, like in-game players or something like that, get access to the test server and kind of test it out, not with the intention of kind of grinding it out in the sense of actually knowing how much you actually need to get these things, but actually testing how it's actually working, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's like a bit of a necessary evil because the name in itself is public test server. It's there because, I mean, World of Warcraft might be able to get away with not having a test server because it's Blizzard, a multi-billion-dollar company who has, like, they can hire like 5,000 testers whenever they want and test their game. But Tryon, small indie company, not really, but you know, like it's on the test server so they can find out bugs. So it's kind of like a necessary evil, but at the same time, it's just player mentality. Also with the competitive nature of like end game clubs always wanting to stay one step ahead of the other club or stay at the top of the leaderboards. People will want to min-max and do all this stuff. And it's just a shame, but that's the nature of the beast. And it's up to Tryon, I guess, because you're not going to tell people, hey, listen, don't play the game or don't grind the game. So
yeah, don't make spreadsheets or cheat sheets, whatever you're gonna call them.
Exactly.
But I think that to round out the whole Geode discussion is that we are hoping for great content that is gonna keep us and not feel like it's kind of deflating kind of deal where we had kind of more expectation. For example, with the Eclipse update, we had more expectation. It kind of not mended our expectations, but let's hope that Geode is a good enough update that will keep us interested until we are actually going to see what we really are in for. So I hope that that was something that was enough for what you wanted to say about Geode.
Yeah.
Great, super. So I think we're gonna wrap it up here. I first of all, I want to say, Bocc, thank you so much for coming on. I think we had some really good discussions, and really the flow was great. So thank you so much for coming on. And if you have some final words you want to say about anything at all, so now is a chance.
No, I mean, saying I love Trove. I'm going to keep playing it every single day. And I really appreciate you having me on the stream. I'm looking forward to the future of this game and, what happens. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. And I'll definitely hit you up some other time for maybe another time we get on. Definitely the podcast will live on, so we can have these great discussions and keep... I think it's a good idea that we... or hopefully at some point the devs will acknowledge these podcasts. It is a community one. It is community driven. I'm the main driven, but I'm pulling in people so get as many diversity or in the opinions, and we need both the positive, but we also need the critical. We can't just say that this is the best game in the world and there's nothing wrong with it. We definitely have to be so it's great that you have some critical points. That's very important.
Yeah, if you wanna have me on sometime and talk about proclamophones, then we can make a whole spiel about that. But no, I really like discussing with you, because you had some opposing viewpoints from what I had, and that's always great to get to hear other people's points of view.
100%. So, I want to say to YouTube out there, thank you so much for watching this one. Of course, again, you can go to the description there with Bocc's things will be there. Definitely his Twitch, and do you have a YouTube?
Yeah, I do actually.
Okay.
I can link it
that
to
will
you.
be in the description as well, so you could go click that, subscribe to there, follow him, of course, on the Twitch as well. If you wanna, you can catch some more live streams, and you can kind of discuss all these things with him. So you have the opportunity as well. Again, thank you so much for coming on, Bocc, and I will just see you guys in the next podcast. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you. Bye.